So I think I met you all earlier. I'm Kevin Gowland. I'm Deputy Head of Wind, Brass and Percussion, and I'm Director of Woodwind. I'm really pleased that I'm joined today by three students that you saw play earlier. You might recognise them. We have Angel on flute,
Hi everyone.
Bia is bassoon, and Seb clarinet. Angel, Bia, and Seb are all part of Tempest Ensemble, and you heard a sort of minute and a half clip of them. So I thought it'd be great to invite them here, partly to help me with questions. I think this morning a lot of you put questions through the chat box, and both Seb and Bia will be keeping an eye on that, and they have full license to interrupt me and put the questions forward if that helps. So there you go, you'll have to stop me in my tracks. That's a big job. And Angel, as I said earlier, will be keeping an eye on the door. So, welcome. Can I just start? And if you could put your thumbs up or a clapping sign, could I ask how many flutes are here today? One, two. Oh, wow, loads. Welcome. Great, fantastic. And oboes? Excellent. Clarinets? Great. And bassoons? Who else have we got? Excuse me whilst I flip through screens. And recorders? Have we got any recorders here today? No recorders. Okay, great. So, at any point, if you have a question for me, please put it into the chat room, into the chat. And like I say, Seb and Bia, if you just interrupt me, come off mute and interrupt me. So the first thing I'd like to talk about is something that we briefly touched on this morning, and quite a few of you were asking about the audition process. We changed our audition process a couple of years ago to just make it completely fair, to be honest, and give everybody a really great chance. We don't want there to be any surprises in the audition. Everything that happens in the audition in terms of repertoire and scales is clearly outlined on the on the website for the RNCM. So do keep an eye on that. I think applications for 2021 entry, I think the information opens from about the 16th of July. And if we do make changes to the repertoire that will be asked at audition, it will be on the website by the 16th of July. We're looking into it at the moment. One thing that people asked this morning was, will it be unaccompanied? At the current time, yes, it will be unaccompanied. It will be online. And what we do is that we set two pieces. So there are two set pieces, and all candidates choose one piece out of the two, and then they offer an own choice as well. So really give that some thought. If you're thinking of applying, give that some thought. What will really show you be comfortable, what will really balance the set piece you choose. When I say there's no surprises, we're not going to then ask you to play a random scale. We ask two majors, two harmonic minors, two melodic minors, a chromatic, and everything is put on the website. So for instance, you'll know exactly which scales you will be expected to play. And the fact that they're set there means that you will have to play them. So I hope that's clear. The one, I kept it to myself until now, the one surprise element is sight reading. So we didn't used to do sight reading at the RNCM. We used to do a prepared study. So you were given the study half an hour before the audition and came in and played it. We thought that was a little bit unfair because actually you would probably appreciate half an hour warming up without panicking about prepared study. So the sight reading, just a very short excerpt, will be given at the end of the audition. Now, in the chat earlier, somebody asked about summer courses and all the things that you've done prior to to auditioning for the RNCM and how important is it. And I briefly explained that actually the interview that we now do as part of the audition to us is as important as the playing. We're not looking for we're not necessarily looking for ready formed players. What we want is potential and above all personality. I think when we get to talking to Seb, Bea and Angel, you'll realise how important that is to us. It has an effect. How we operate as a school is reflected in very much the students that we take. So I think you'll hear more about that later. Any questions come in yet, Seb or Bea, on the audition process? Seb?
Yes, there. I'm sorry.
Oh, somebody wants to know: are there any oral tests in the audition?
Oral tests, no. There aren't oral tests in the actual audition, but you do an online general musicianship test. Bea?
Also, is this the same for postgraduate auditions?
Great question.
For postgraduate?
Great question. Postgraduates, it's very much a 20-minute own choice recital. Think of it as recital. In fact, undergrad auditions, don't think of it as an audition. This is your 20 minutes. This is your moment to make the panel sit and listen. I personally never think of auditions as auditions. It's all about performing. You take control of that 20 minutes, you make us listen. So just to clear up, the set repertoire, the choice of set pieces is undergrad, and the postgrad, it's own choice, 20 minutes. And again, choose something. We're not looking for fireworks at all. We're looking for musicianship, personality, potential. That's the really big thing, is potential. Seb?
Is it just one round, or are there multiple rounds?
Okay, this is another thing that's great questions. Thanks all of you for putting these in. This is another thing that's changed in the past 2 years. The RNCM always used to do a first round and a second round, and the first rounds were held in the morning. Everybody then went for lunch, and you had to hang around and be told if you'd got through to the first round or the second round. I don't think that's great. None of them think that's great. It's that moment of waiting. So no, it's all done in one round. We tend to have all the auditions day after day. So for instance, probably 4 days of flute auditions back to back. No decision is made until we've heard all candidates. Very accurate notes are made, and regardless of the result, any applicant can ask for feedback at any stage. More questions. Bea, you're busy.
What is the fee for the online audition?
The fee for the online audition, that's a great question as well. You're really putting me to the test. That will be available. All information will be available on the website. Seb? I'll just unmute you, Seb.
Sorry, I thought I unmuted myself, but apparently I'm stupid. What do you look for in an audition?
What do we look for in an audition? Yeah, great question. Well, potential is the main thing. Absolute potential. I personally am more impressed with that than who can play standing on their heads backwards scales in thirds up to a top D. Any more? Bea?
Are all auditions going to be online?
For the next set of auditions, which is for entry in 2021, so they'll be happening in November, December, yes. As it stands at the moment, they will all be happening online.
And to piggyback off that, when you say online, do you mean that they take a video of themselves playing and send it, or is it live?
Okay, great question again. Thank you so much. We're working constantly at the moment to get the best possible experience. So there are a lot of discussions happening a level way above me, and at the executive level, is the best way to do them on Zoom, live on Zoom, on accepted, which we run through UCAS. So submit a video through accepted. It will be reviewed by the panel. So we're in discussion. Everything, like I say, from the 16th of July, everything will be finalised and available online. Bea.
Does the audio quality matter a lot or not in the recorded audition?
Okay.
Recorded or audio audition?
Yeah. Recorded quality. I think given that a lot of our delivery at the moment is online, we're all learning to see that potential through the audio quality. However, again, a lot of discussion is happening with sound and video department, admissions, to what will be the best possible way of applicants submitting their material. Obviously, some people have probably got very fancy microphones and speakers, but we will make sure that there is something in line for everybody. Seb.
Lots of people are asking how many flutes are accepted, how many oboes are accepted, how many audition versus how many accepted, what's the ratio like in
Okay.
flautist audition compared to the average acceptance, etc.
Okay, great. I could show you a piece of string and say how long is that. A simple answer would be, there's no simple answer. We don't have a set number. It's great, this was asked earlier as well, that we don't look for, say, 5 flutes, 5 oboes, 5 of everything each year. A lot of it depends on the ecology of the entire department. We obviously have a lot of orchestras and ensembles, and we have to be able to seat all the students in at least one project. And a lot of it will depend if we've got a particularly large final year of, say, clarinets, then as more students leave, we need to start filling up. But generally, there is no set number. And I would go as far as saying actually there's no minimum, no maximum. Generally. Does that help? Seb?
I've got another one here. It says, are there any special access provisions for students with special needs and or learning disabilities in which students would get extra time with associated board exams for the audition and interview process?
Great, thanks so much for that. When you apply, this is something, if you're going along to the sessions after this, this is really a fantastic question to ask admissions and registry. I think on the form you declare, it's confidential form, obviously, that the panel sees, and you put in any disclosures. So also, just following on from that, if you're offered a place and accepted a place and you have learning disabilities or mobility, all of that you will be asked, and everybody who needs to know will be made very aware. So in terms of associated boards, that was the question, wasn't it, giving extra time? Yes, if we know that a student has a specific learning plan in place, they are given extra time to do academic work. For instance, they're given, on a practical level, they're given extra time to do sight reading. Whatever the need is, we do cater for it. Hi.
The next one is, does everyone get the chance to play in an orchestra even in first year?
Yeah, absolutely. One of my most enjoyable parts of this job is that I have the huge privilege of seating every single Woodwind student in an orchestra and ensemble, and I can safely say that I currently have 80 Woodwind students. I'm director of Woodwind, obviously, and I'm also a flute teacher at the RNCM. And I have my own flute class. I have 7 students of my own, but for me, it's irrelevant what instrument they play. As far as I'm concerned, as director of Woodwind, I have 80 students. I I will seat every single student in at least one project. Just following on from that with orchestras and ensembles, twice a year for two what we call major projects, we do screened auditions. This is something we introduced about 2 years ago. The panel is external and it's open for the major projects. So it could be the end of year symphony orchestra concert in Bridgewater Hall, or one of the other projects this year was a project with Chamber Orchestra of Europe. They're open to all students and the panel is external, and quite often what we find is that a first year can win the principal seat or the second seat, which is, I think that's amazing. It's wonderful for all our students. More questions. Seb, you two are so busy today.
Well, for the 3-year course, do you have to have taken a diploma before you apply, as this person was postponed because of the lockdown?
So is that, just to clarify, is that the 3-year joint course? Or the
I
accelerated course?
don't know. It just says 3-year course. This is Anna T.
Anna T. If you can maybe clarify if that's the joint course with the University of Manchester, and we'll come back to that. Other questions so far? Yeah.
Okay, so 2-in-1 is how much academic work is there compared to performing? If there are lots of more performing than academic work, and how many assessments are there a year, and what do they consist of?
Wow. Okay, I'll try and remember all of that. So in terms of academic, again, that's a great question. If you're going along to the session with Michelle Phillips and Nick Rayland after this, please ask them about academic. I'm very much performance side. As far as I'm concerned, there are a lot of performance opportunities. The students I work with have a very even balance between academic and principal study. In terms of assessment, we have 2 techniques exams a year, that's principal study. One is, it's split into 2 sections. One is scales and studies. Techniques part 1 and techniques part 2 is orchestral excerpts. And then on top of that, we also have every year a sort of end of year recital. We have ongoing assessments, if you like, in that we, in the SWBP, Wind, Brass and Percussion department, we run things that we call stages, and we introduced POPs. So stages are a sort of progressive, if you'd like, monitoring that we do. And in the talk earlier, we were talking about when you finally get onto the externals list. To get onto the externals list, you go through a series of stages, which are 3 grades. So 1, A, B, 2, external. And also I did explain earlier that these 3 members of Tempest Ensemble went through, after their debut concert in January this year, they went through chamber music stages, accelerated through, and are now on the external list. I hope that helps in terms of assessment. Seb?
So Anna T has classified the 3-year normal ordinary BMUS course.
Okay. The usual BMUS course is 4 years. At audition, if somebody we can put somebody on a 3-year accelerated course. That means that you combine first and second year in 1 year, and then you jump into 3rd year. It means that you have to jump through a lot of hoops, I guess. You have to be absolutely outstanding at audition. We have to be convinced that by the end of your 1st year, you're ready to go into 3rd year, because technically you will miss 2nd year, if you see what I mean. And the techniques exams that I just spoke about, you would have to do straight into level 2 in your 1st year. So the norm is to do 4 years. Any more? Bea?
When is the application deadline?
The application deadline is, well, the opening, so the application's open on the 16th of July. The deadline will be available online at the same time. Just make sure you read everything about open date and closing date. Occasionally, we do consider late applications throughout the year. Seb.
In my experience, the deadline is usually the 1st of October. Although just to say that I am one such person that did a actually very late application. So
Very late application. I remember I was in the south of France as a kid.
Yes,
Sorry.
me too. I did it also later.
Yes. Oh, and Angel, possibly late application.
So just to confirm that
Yes, actually.
we are proof that that is possible. So I'm going to combine quite a lot of these questions into one. Lots of people want to know about doubling opportunities, for example, flute and piccolo, bassoon and contrabassoon, etc.
Great. Thanks so much for that. These are great questions. I had got a script and you're sort of covering everything I wanted to talk about. I'm really happy that you can take control and ask me anything you want related to the RNCM. So doubling is compulsory. So in years 1, 2 and 3, so undergraduate 1, 2 and 3, it's compulsory that flute players learn piccolo, clarinets learn E flat and bass, oboes have cor anglais, and bassoons have contrabassoon. So we give 7 hours of doubling provision in years 1, 2 and 3. The exception to that is the clarinets, because they have 2 doubling instruments and both E flat and bass are compulsory. I come from an orchestral background. I've been principal flute for more years than I would admit, and because of that I appreciate the importance of feeling absolutely comfortable on, for me, the piccolo. I'm aware that that we have a lot of some of the finest international orchestras on our doorstep, and we are the only college in the Northwest, and I'm very aware that if our students are as good on the doubling instruments as they are in their principal study, the chance of employment is better. It also comes from when I was fixing extra players for my section. It's when you're doing large scale works, for instance, a mild symphony that has 5 flutes or 4 oboes and at least 2 of them double. It's quite unusual for musicians, for wind players, to be as comfortable on both, and I just really think it's so important. The one thing that we have changed from next year is that from 4th year and postgrads 1 and 2, or if you're doing it in a 1-year course, you can still continue with the doubling instruments, so piccolo, cor anglais, you know the list, or you can now choose to have your 7 hours in a related instrument. And that could be something you might want to go down the jazz route. You might want jazz lessons. You might want to discover Baroque classical. It might be that you think, actually, you know what, I would really like 7 hours of singing lessons. And we will look into that. So 4th years and postgrads now have the option to not study their doubling instrument, but have 7 hours in related, which will be related to the career that you're thinking of. Seb.
So I think you've just covered it, but just to clarify, so second study instruments, for example, there's a flautist here in the chat that is interested in also having saxophone lessons. They could take the saxophone as their 7 hours, but only in 4th year or postgrad. Is that correct?
Yeah, and that's actually
sorry, go on.
That's actually new from next year.
Yeah.
4th year, that flute player could have saxophone lessons.
Presumably, they can also, if they want their flute lessons and their piccolo lessons, they could also have additional second study saxophone lessons if they pay the tutor themselves. Is that correct?
That would be something that if somebody wants additional lessons and are very happy to pay for them. We cover first study and doubling. If you want to have additional lessons, then you can talk to us. We can either put you in touch with one of our very fine postgrads, or you can contact a tutor. But that won't be done through the actual course that we run. So it's an option.
And sorry, just one more thing on to piggyback on the doubling question is that now people are following that up with do they have to own their own doubling instruments, for example, piccolos, E-flat clarinets, bass clarinets?
Yeah, thanks for that. We have a very large stock of doubling instruments. And that covers a whole range. We have, for instance, 2 bass flutes, about 5 alto flutes. We've got a stock of E-flat clarinets, bass clarinets, cor anglais. We've just increased the stock of cor anglais. And we also have contrabassoons. Now it's done as a as a sort of, you pay a little bit of insurance. The exact figure, the administrator, Susie Stonefield, our administrator, will have the exact figure. But it's just, if you're going to take the instrument out of the building, then you just pay a little bit of cover. Do any of you guys know? I think it's about £35, possibly.
I was under the impression that I might be wrong on this, and also it might have changed. But I was under the impression that you, at the beginning of the year, you paid £30 or £40 for kind of the ability to get any instruments out whenever you like, and then as long as everything's been fine and you haven't broken anything, you get the money back at the end of the year.
Yeah, so it's like a deposit rather than a premium.
I actually didn't pay anything to use the contrabassoons. We just have to sign.
I think it's quite a recent
like a responsibility paper.
Yep. Good. Right, Bia.
So the next one is: are there any reed-making opportunities for oboes?
Right. Bia, you might be talking again very soon, even though you're a bassoon, not an oboe player. We've been so lucky that our reed room was completely refurbished and specially designed. A year ago, we have sponsorship with the reed making machines of Switzerland. We've got all new equipment, box equipment, is it, Bia? Cube.
We have new reed making machines and all that, yeah, in a tiny space for bassoons and oboes.
So the space is, thanks, Bea. The space is shared between oboes and bassoons. The room has a swipe card, so it's only bassoons and oboes that can use it. It was specially designed by our senior oboe tutor, Stefan Roncourt, and he's done individual workstations. It's not the biggest room in the world, but it can seat about 8, I believe, with high-level seating, individual lamps. We're looking at the possibility of installing recording equipment. So if we have one of our really fantastic guests come, masterclass providers, they will do a reed making and it will be captured. We also give, on top of the doubling, so for oboes and bassoon students, we give 10 hours of reed making classes as well. The way that's worked this year is that all the bassoon staff have a reed making tutor, and I believe that some of the other tutors offer help as well. The way that the oboes run it is that all the tutors in the oboe team give a couple of hours of reed making. So that's open to all oboe and bassoon students. Seb.
So this person has a master's degree from a university and is interested at studying at RNCM to learn from a conservatoire, and wants to know what you would recommend about a conservatoire, presumably as opposed to a university.
Okay, I think, having come from that field, particularly, Seb, maybe you're qualified to answer that.
I was just thinking actually, yeah. So I did, not my master's, but I did my undergrad degree just down the road at the University of Manchester in music, and then did my master's at RNCM. It's kind of hard to say exactly because they're just really, really different. and it's hard to articulate what the difference is exactly. It's just sort of a different vibe, as you might expect, really, because going to a university that offers so many different, music, history, drama, science, all sorts. Whereas, of course, all conservatoires are very much just performance based. And also it's hard to answer because it really depends which university you went to. So, for example, when I was at Uni of Manchester, I was really lucky because they have actually a surprisingly large music department there. Loads or they did when I was there anyway. It was a while ago now because I'm old. But there were loads of performances. I got to play some really cool symphonies in the orchestras and loads of choirs and stuff. And I guess if you've been to a university that doesn't have such a big music department, or indeed you've studied a subject other than music, then it's going to be even more different. I would say that coming to conservatoires generally, especially RNCM, is just sort of more performances, basically. I mean, university, for me anyway, was a more kind of rounded experience of like little bits of performance, little bits of composition, little bits of essay writing, etc. And then basically I decided after that I really performance was what I wanted to focus on. Because before coming to uni, I just knew I was interested in music generally, but didn't know what. And so, yeah, I wanted to focus on performance, so RNCM was the obvious choice. And I'm really pleased I came. So I hope that answers your question, kind of.
That's great. And that kind of leads me on to, in terms of performance opportunity, there have been plenty, haven't there? And I'm not doing that as I'm sort of doing that as a prompt. Part of what I was going to talk about, and we will come back to your other questions later, part of what I was going to talk about, and I sort of touched on it briefly, that we have some of the finest orchestras in the world on our doorstep, but we also have relationships with Netherlands Wind Ensemble and Chamber Orchestra of Europe and Mahler Chamber Orchestra. So we call them professional experience schemes, PES schemes. So out of these very fine musicians in front of me, Seb took part in the PES scheme with Netherlands Wind Ensemble. Beatrice has taken part in the PES scheme with the Halle Orchestra, and Angel has actually done PES schemes with both the Halle and the BBC Phil orchestras. Now, the PES schemes are open from third year. So third year, fourth year, and postgrads, it's done by audition. But Seb, for instance, could you maybe just talk us through that initial audition and then what happened after that?
Of course. So I mean, the Netherlands Wind Ensemble, I think the audition process for that is very unique and very different to the others. So when I did my Halle PES scheme, it was totally different, but Bea will talk more about that in a second. But specifically the Netherlands one, it was so three of the members from the orchestra came to visit, and they do so every year, including the musical director, and they basically ran a sort of workshop, because a lot of what they specifically were looking for was more about how you interact with your other musicians, how you play as an ensemble. Huge emphasis on ensemble skills, which of course there is in any ensemble, but especially this one, I think. And so there was a solo aspect to the audition, but it was actually a really small part of it. They said that everyone had to prepare a piece which they played by themselves with no accompaniment, and they would only hear 2 minutes of it. And they'd actually start a timer when you started playing and stop it at 2 minutes, and no matter where you were in the piece, they'd stop you there, so that they could hear everyone. And also, I should say, that's in front of them, but also in front of all of your colleagues, which sort of makes it easier and harder at the same time, depending on how you look at it. But yeah, so that part was actually a relatively small. They only hear you for 2 minutes, and then the rest of it was, as I say, this huge emphasis on ensemble playing, and they kind of look at how you work with your fellow musicians and how you respond to instructions as well. That's quite a key one. And actually, it was a really, really interesting day, and I think there were about 30 of us that got sort of shortlisted from the entire department to take part in the workshop, and then 3 of us that got to go. But I mean, I didn't speak to anyone out of those 30 or however many it was people that didn't enjoy the session. And so everyone was saying, oh, that was really fun, and even if I don't get to go, really, really pleased I did that. It was a really, really fun experience, and obviously I totally agreed. And then I was really lucky that I did get to go, and this basically consisted of uh, flying out on Boxing Day to Amsterdam to rehearse with the Netherlands Wind Ensemble, who are, just the nicest A and B, the most talented musicians, some of which I've ever met. Fly out on Boxing Day, do 3 days of rehearsal, I think, and then do 3 concerts in the Concertgebouw in Amsterdam, which are, well, not all 3 of them. One of them is publicly broadcast on New Year's Day. It's a New Year's Day concert. But the reason they do 3 is because it's always sold out, and so they just started repeating the concert so that more people could see it. And all 3 of them were completely sold out, and it was this sort of crazy experience. You'd kind of have to see it to believe it, but it wasn't just the sort of concert where people play and the audience watch and then they clap and then they play the next piece, and which is great and I love doing. But this one was just, there was, so if you saw a picture of the stage, you kind of understand, but there's a big, huge metal slide that went down the middle of the Concertgebouw stage that 2 of the clarinetists slid down while they were playing. There was all these acrobatics going on. At the end, there was like balloons that dropped down. It was, I can't even begin to describe it, but it was incredible. And so, I got to spend a week in Amsterdam with 2 of my best friends from the college and play music at really, really, really the highest level that I've done. So, can't recommend it enough.
Wow, amazing. What an amazing experience. Right, Angel, I could you talk through the BBC Phil audition, the process? I think you've just been in a workshop today, haven't you, this morning?
Yes, actually, the first flute, Alex Jageman, she was giving a masterclass about the excerpts, like we have to play for them in the audition. So we got the excerpts like probably 2 weeks ago. So during next year, in middle September or October, we will have the audition. Well, I can't apply again, but yes, the flute mates will have it. And yes, the process is the first round. I think is quite different from the Netherlands audition. It's quite different. The first round is blind, so you don't see the panel, and you just prepare the excerpts and just play. And they set up also a sight reading, and then after that they choose actually maybe 2 people or 3 to go to the second round, and after that they just choose one. You have to prepare piccolo as well, not just flute. And then when I got the placement with them, it was amazing. I mean, the BBC Philharmonic, what can I say? They are amazing. The flute section and the entire orchestra actually is amazing. So when I went there, I was quite nervous, but because well, I went to the Bridgewater Hall to listen to them playing concert, and it was amazing. Yes, the first placement, you just have to listen to some piece and listen to them how the section works, like how they blend together, and the volume you have to really play, because because when you go there you have to play as a second flute. So you think like probably, oh, second flute, you don't have to play so loud, but actually you need to really support the harmony there. So you need to play so loud, and yeah, you learn a lot from there. I had to play with them in Lancaster in 2 concerts actually, one in Lancaster and the other one in Henley, and the experience it was amazing. I mean the best ever. So yeah,
And
it
what
was amazing.
what repertoire did you play?
I played an overture by Mendelssohn. I can Ruy Blas
Yep.
overture, and yeah, it was amazing. Also, well, during the rehearsals, you had to, because you go during different months, no? So the first one, I think I played Borjak 9, New
Wonderful.
World, and also yeah, Enescu, second Rhapsody, something else I can't remember because actually it was in my first year postgraduate.
Yeah.
So
So
it was
amazing,
amazing.
both amazing experiences. And Bia, you've just this year you've been doing. It was slightly interrupted, but you were doing the Halle scheme.
Yeah, I did the
Similar
Halle. It
process,
works
or just
similarly to the BBC one.
yep,
Sorry,
yep.
what were you saying, Kevin?
So can you just tell us, is it a similar process in terms of screened audition, sectional playing? How did you get through to winning the seat?
Yeah, so like the BBC one, it has two rounds. The first one is screened and the second one is not. And as Angel said, they choose about 2 or 3 people from the first group of people to go into round two, and it's not screened. And they were about 4 or 5 people on the panel, which included one of the bassoonists for me, as I am a bassoonist. And they also, while doing the audition, we had to play excerpts. They asked us to do some changes in the excerpts and play them at the moment. So they were looking forward for people to be flexible, I think. So we had to play and react how they wanted.
Yeah.
And then I got through. And we did a kind of masterclass, like we got together all the woodwind section, so the flutes that got in, the bassoons, clarinets, and that, and we played all together a set piece, and we would rotate the parts. So for some minutes or 1 hour, someone played the first part and then switched to the second part, and all the first players or second players or who came, they evaluate us and also spoke with us and asked for some changes in order to build up the section we were working on. And so they got to know us a bit better. We got to know them a bit better as well. And then some of us got selected, one per instrument, I think. And then we have some other stages. There are 3 in total, I think. And the second one was to go to a rehearsal with them and to watch and be with the section in the middle of the section. So I was between the first and second bassoon, for example, and I got to ask them a lot of questions while they were rehearsing. So this was amazing because while they were playing, we could ask, why are you doing this, or why are you doing that? How do you react to a certain type of conductor? Or I don't know, how do you feel with this orchestra or with this piece in particular? Yeah. And also there with the Chamber Orchestra of Europe, also did auditions, and I got through with another colleague, and we were to play Schumann's third, and they would evaluate us, but we did it online, and so I just submitted this week an audition as well.
Amazing. And I think the Chamber Orchestra of Europe project is very much that you go and join them for a week on tour, isn't it? So
Yeah, it is.
I mean, these are just part of our PES schemes, and as you'll see there, I think we have a lot of opportunities like this, and it's great to hear these stories. Thanks so much. It sounds like it's just the most amazing situation to be involved in, and a real taste of what it's like to be in the profession. I just saw a little question came in about studying abroad. Is it just possible through the PES schemes? We're currently still part of Erasmus. Obviously, the whole Brexit, I don't know. We're running it this year. So I know there have been Erasmus applications. It'll be the Internationals office. Please, if there's a session with them after this, or if you want me to put you in touch with the International office and you can ask direct question about Erasmus to them, please do email me or find them at the next session after this. I think there was, I'm just jumping in because you three have spoken a lot and I'm getting a little bit, I need to talk. So there's a question came in about lessons. Thanks. That was on my list. So at the moment you have 27 hours of principal study and 7 hours of doubling. Unless you're clarinet, you have 10 hours of doubling. Bassoons and oboes on top of that, so 27. Maths is not my strong point, but 27 plus 7, 34. 34 hours of contact time. We also have 20 hours of in-house classes, which every member of the tutor team in that instrument-specific group takes at least one. So we're up to 54. Looks like Seb's doing a calculator. And then also flute players have, I think it's 20 hours. 20 hours of flute choir. Clarinets, the same for a clarinet choir. And we also do a series of masterclasses. So these are different to the in-house classes that the tutors take. We have a really great relationship with lots of international artists. For instance, over the past year, we've had flute classes from Emily Bynum, Michelle Bellavance, Andrea Oliver, who's now our international visiting tutor. So in the flutes, all of the students had access to Andrea. We had Paul Edmund Davis only last week, and all of the flute students took part in his class. In oboes, we've had Jonathan Kelly from the Berlin Phil and Olivier Stenkovich from the LSO. Clarinets, we've had Olivier Paty and Bruno Bonancia. Seb can tell me how to pronounce that. Mark Simpson has been in recently. And in the bassoons, we had Sergio Azzolini come and do a big project. And we also, this year, had Andrea Zucco come in and do a project. And Andrea Zucco is actually going to be a regular member of our bassoon teaching staff now. He will visit 9 times a year, at least 9 times a year, and he has joined the bassoon tutor team. So all Bea and Seb and Angel have all played in these masterclasses. In fact, Seb has just legged it here from an earlier session this morning where he played in a masterclass with Olivier. It was done via Zoom. Olivier's principal clarinet and concertgebouw, and he's visited twice this year. And also, actually, it's been very busy for you, Seb, hasn't it? Because you did a workshop with Mark Simpson as well, which was sort of connected.
Yeah, and I just had a session this afternoon with Fraser of BBC Phil as well. So it's been, somehow busier in lockdown than it was before lockdown. I'm not quite sure how that works, but
yeah, great. Questions, please put some questions forward. Bea.
So about the PES schemes,
Sure.
what are the orchestras and groups available for flutists next year?
Okay, so we currently, for flute players, we currently have the Halle, the BBC Philharmonic, Chamber Orchestra of Europe, Mahler Chamber Orchestra, Netherlands Wind Ensemble. We are hoping to start, there's currently a scheme for brass players with the Orchestra of Opera North. We're starting a scheme for woodwind players with the Orchestra of Opera North. It'll be slightly different to the brass scheme. It's going to be very much workshop based, so along the lines of the Halle and the BBC Phil, where Opera North come in and work with the wind students. So that, I think, is 6 for flute players, 6 PES schemes that we have available. More questions?
somebody would like to know, is there an advantage to applying early, or does everyone who applies get equal consideration?
Everyone that applies gets equal consideration. What I don't know. I'm a little bit. If you, I mean, I shouldn't really say this because all 3 of you applied late, but it kind of does you no harm. It does you no harm to stick to the closing date. And I only say that because then when you come on to, if you do accept a place, get a place, accept a place at the RNCM, for things like the screened auditions that we do, or any of these PES schemes, so all of these opportunities that are done by audition, we kind of we treat you as professionals from day one that you walk in, and any job, any vacancy that is advertised, there's always a closing date, and I'm afraid we're so harsh in the wind, brass and percussion school that when you're inside the building, once we finally got you in and you go for all of these screened auditions, if you miss the closing date, I'm really sorry, but we don't accept applications. That does not apply to the entrance auditions, but my advice would be stick to the closing date.
And just to add to that, so as I said, I applied late, and I was very lucky that there was still space for me. But sometimes I imagine, Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong, if by some chance that particular year you've had far more clarinetists applying than usual and felt that you were kind of at capacity, then when I emailed and said, "Hi, I want to do a late audition, is there space?" you presumably would have said no. So definitely, if you can, try and apply by the closing date, because you never know who else is going to apply.
Yeah, great. Bea.
How much practice on average a day do woodwind players do at the RNCM?
Oh, now you see.
Now there's a question.
I'm so relieved that you three are here. I'm glad the question wasn't how much practice does the director of Woodwind do a day. So, Angel, how many hours on average do you do? Careful what you say, I teach you.
I mean, I think 3 hours per day, but I don't know. It depends if you have things, upcoming things, really, and you are so busy or not. But I think try to spread 1 hour and a half maybe in the morning, and then after lunch another 1 hour and a half. I'd say is that perfect balance. And you have to know yourself. Like if you are tired, just things are not going to get better just if you are so tired, and you need to know yourself. But I don't know, myself, I just practice 3.5, 4, I'd say. It
Great.
Depends.
Good. Bea?
It's about the same. It kind of depends if we have rehearsals or chamber music going on, and if that is the case, we actually play a lot more than we practice, actually. So I kind of agree with Angel, and I say for bassoonists and oboes, it's different because you have to care for the reeds. So sometimes you have to take about 2 hours a week on average. Kind of depends to take care of the reeds as well. So that kind of counts as practice, I guess.
And Seb, you've had time to think about it.
Well, you're both absolutely showing me up there. Yeah, I mean, the amount that you play per day and the amount that you practice per day are very, very different answers. And so sometimes in busier periods at college, I would have days where I didn't do any of my own practice at all. Because I was, doing 3 hours of rehearsal in the morning, lunch break, 3 hours of rehearsal in the afternoon, dinner break, 3 hours of rehearsal in the evening on some days. And that is quite rare, obviously, that you get a day like that. But it definitely does happen. In lockdown, I've been much better at practicing, and I'm just about climbing up to the levels of my esteemed colleagues here. But yeah, I think Anne really nailed where he said it just depends on who you are and how busy you are. Everyone will be different. I think it's very easy sometimes at music college to think, oh, so-and-so is doing 4 hours of practice a day, and they're doing 2 hours of nothing but long notes and 2 hours of nothing but scales, and oh gosh, I should be doing that too, and blah, blah, blah. But everyone's different. There's no point doing 4 hours of really, really rubbish, unproductive practice. It's better to do half an hour of really focused. So it's quality, not quantity, definitely.
Absolutely, that was going to be my punchline. That quality, not quantity, was definitely going to be my punchline. And it's interesting that we've got 32 people here, and I can see 3, but the 3 that have talked about practice have made that real separation between playing and practice. And so, if one is practicing for 6 hours, is it actually practice or is it playing? So, yeah, I think it depends on the person, and quantity is better than quality. Questions?
So this question, I suppose, is more of a question for me than for Kevin. It says, "Are you required to own a clarinet before starting the course?" I don't think there's an official sort of prerequisite that says you can't come unless you own an A clarinet. I would say that I wouldn't expect to be put in any orchestral projects if you don't have one, or at least you don't have access to one. Having said that, the college does have their own A clarinet. In fact, they might have two, I'm not sure. But they definitely have one that you can loan out. So it's not a deal breaker. I would definitely recommend, if you can, getting one before you start. Would be very, very helpful.
And possibly, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Seb, but possibly it's part of the equipment, is it? Equipment expected of a professional clarinetist to have B flat and A.
Yes, yes.
So it's
I think nobody would expect you to have your own E flat or your own bass. They would, if it came up, they would check with you. They probably wouldn't bother checking with you about B flat and A's because, as you say, they would just expect you to have them. So it's not a prerequisite in the sense that RNCM is never going to turn to you and say, "Oh, well, you're definitely good enough to come here, but you don't have your own A clarinet, so sorry, go away, we're not interested." That's never going to happen, obviously. But you will, if you are looking to be a professional clarinetist, you will definitely need one at some point.
Yeah.
And the sooner that point is, the easier your life will be.
Yeah, and just coming in on that as well, you know, now is possibly the time to start thinking about a clarinet if you're thinking about applying to music colleges and you want to be a professional musician. If it is the expected part of a kit for a clarinet player to have an A, just think about it. Think outside the box. You know, there's a lot of funding opportunities. There are so many scholarships, and okay, there's lots of people going for them, but external funding. Within the college, we also have some scholarships that we nominate students for. So there's Wolfson Award, which is applicable to students, usually to students who are coming to the end of their second year. So bear that in mind. You can apply for funding. But yeah.
So this is two questions. There is a person who has a MS from the University of Liverpool, and she's asking what course would be best from the RNCM, and also if a part-time study is an option.
Okay, gosh, that's yeah, sorry, what was the degree in? Was it music degree from Liverpool?
She doesn't say. Maybe she can write Lisa McCloskey. Okay, maybe we get that to that
Yeah,
later.
so
I'm sorry.
just generally, I always think that research everything, research the opportunities, research the different postgrad courses, and really think what's going to be most appropriate for your level and your interest. Hi.
She says she's taken a MS in solo performance.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So yeah, it depends on you. Read the absolute, you know, the description. Part-time study, no, not really. We do a sort of an associate course, but I think it's more for overseas. Check with admissions about that. So again, they'll be around at the end of this session.
How long do you get one-to-one with your tutor per week on your principal instrument postgrad? So 27 hours a year averages out to about 1 hour per week. Is that correct, Kevin?
Yeah, it's sort of, if you think 3 9's 27, so 9 lessons a term. Terms tend to be 11 weeks, 10 weeks, 11 weeks. So yeah, an hour a week. These are great questions, everybody. Thanks so much for participating. Bia.
Is there a repertoire class available to develop ensemble playing, or are there enough full ensemble playing and this is not required?
Okay, yeah, we do wind rep. So there are loads of wind rep sessions. We get a lot of external and internal conductors to take those. We also, for instance, Jonathan Small, who's principal oboe for Royal Liverpool Philharmonic, takes sectionals. Graham Salvage takes sectionals. Laura Jellicoe, Hugh McKenna, oboe. We get a lot of our tutors with huge orchestral experience to take the sectionals. Um, Earlier, when I was talking about one of the great things about my job is putting people in orchestras. What I also try and do is build sections. I came from two different orchestras where I had fantastic, not only fantastic flute sections around me, but fantastic woodwind sections. And what I want from all of my students is to experience that joy of playing in a woodwind section that really works. And it's interesting what Angel said about when he was playing second in the BBC Phil, that you actually felt you had to play quite loudly and support. That's exactly what I've had in my career as an orchestral musician, and it's something that I'm absolutely passionate about, that it's not just the principal seat that's important. As far as I'm concerned, in a woodwind section, every single seat is as important. So it's something that we work very hard on. On top of all the orchestral rep sessions that we have a thriving chamber music department. And I think there's literally 1,000 hours of coaching available. You can sign up for coaching. Rob and I spoke earlier that as first years coming in, we will put you in a chamber group. We encourage all of our students, postgrads as well, to, as things change, it might be that you suddenly fall out with the person you were put in a group with, and as you get to know your peers, that you think, oh, I would like to play in a quintet with so and so. And I mean, these three who are part of Tempest formed relatively late through college, but actually, as you heard earlier, it's a really fantastic chamber group. And I think you all get on brilliantly, and things are happening possibly as a result of the opportunities that you've had at the college. So um, I hope that answers. So yes, it's really important. Repertoire classes, ensemble playing, and these guys are a result of all of that. More questions. We've gone over. This is absolutely fantastic. Thank you. Are there any questions just to finish off with? If somebody wants to jump in with a couple of final questions, I do realise you have other sessions to go to. Any more? No more. Okay, I've kept you. Do we require a B foot joint flute? No, you don't require a B foot joint for your flute. We don't have a B foot, unlike piccolos and alto flutes and E flats and bass clarinets. It Lots of professional players don't play on a B foot. There are options. I actually have a spare B foot that I bought for £125, and it works brilliantly. So a bit like the A clarinet, if you're thinking about being, a professional musician, it might be something as a flute player that you want to consider. But there are as many players out there who play on a C foot as a B foot, so it would not affect your entrance to the RNCM. Bia.
Can I just reply to questions super fast?
Yeah, do.
So there is a wind orchestra, and people rotate, so we get selected to do several orchestras, but there is one wind orchestra, and the other one was chamber music opportunities. There are a lot, and we did this amazing quintet, which was great. But we can do more than one chamber music group. So I also have the bassoon ensemble, where we were supposed to do lots of concerts, but this situation happened. And also I did a duo for Chamber Music Festival that happened in a weekend at the RNCM. And so we can use these events to create just groups for these specific moments, or we can do just 2 or 3 groups per year if we want to do a trio or a duo or a quartet or a bigger ensemble, and we can just take our time the way we want to, basically.
Yeah, and just jumping in on that also, there's every year there's a Woodwind Chamber Music Prize called the Fuchs Chamber Music Competition. There's prize money involved, and also the panel is made up of 3 external examiners who all run music clubs and music societies in the Northwest. And it's not just that the winner of the competition gets engagements with these organisers. They have free rein to offer an engagement to any group that they hear. So it's a really serious competition, that one, and has produced some really fine chamber groups. I'm going to have to wrap up, I'm afraid, as I've gone way over. But what I will say is, I sort of touched on it earlier, and another great thing about being director of Woodwind here is that, as far as I'm concerned, my journey with you all starts today. And as Open Day, it's great that you've had so many questions for me. But also, what I'd ask is that if I haven't managed to get round to your question, that you email me. You've all seen Kevin Gowland at rncm.ac.uk. Make a note of it. If you have any questions for me, please do email me. And also, my journey continues from here. I will be on the audition panel if you decide to audition for the RNCM, and I hope that you all do. I am on the audition panel for every single Woodwind audition. And then I follow that through. Basically, I am your direct contact for all 80 students. I have an open door policy, and it's very important to me that I start this journey with you and I see you through the RNCM. So on that note, I would like to thank Angel, Bia and Seb for being such fantastic ambassadors as ever for the SWBP and for doing your job so brilliantly. And the audience, thank you so much, but please keep in touch. Email me if you need. Enjoy the rest of the open day. It's been lovely to meet you, and I will see you all at audition. Thank you, guys.
Lots and lots of thank yous in the chat.
That's great. Just turn the recording off now.